So I just want to welcome everybody with Gary V. If you don't know who Gary V is, I envy your position of never being on the internet. I think it's impossible for anybody who actually is on social media or on the internet who hasn't heard of you or at least seen a few of your videos, which are really inspiring. And I know that you talk about everything from like NFTs, crypto, social media, your businesses, your come up in all of these spaces. But I would love to tackle first off, for the purposes of our show, because we do like music and also discussion. I would love to hear from you because I feel like you're really into music. I've seen you like go after younger artists and get involved in their careers, help them out. But you seem to legitimately be a fan of music, and I'm just curious what kind of music you're into.
Thank you. First of all, thank you so much for this this opportunity to chop it up with you guys. You know, I was born in the Soviet Union, came here when I was 3 in 1978, and when I hear a music question, obviously to your point, people have seen the videos of me with Gunno, Lil Baby, or Keed, or all these people that on their come up, and so I love emerging hip hop artists. The way I love emerging social media platforms, emerging technologies. I see it the same way. I'm like, I see this is gonna happen. And so that's fun. But it was funny when you were asking the question, the first thing that popped into my mind was Lionel Richie. You know, I just vividly remember loving Lionel Richie as a kid. And then, you know, I'm 46 and I grew up in Jersey. So I was incredibly affected by the rise of hip hop. Run DMC, Beastie Boys, the Fat Boys, you know, all that stuff. And then I think yeah, I mean, that, it's funny, I was just about to segue. Early on, it was that real OG 86, 87, 88. But really when it got crazy for me was late high school, early college. And you just had so much stuff happening at the same, I mean, for Wu-Tang, you know, if you look in a 5-year, 4-year window, Snoop, Wu-Tang, Nas, Biggie, and it was just like, and I view myself as a storyteller. I think the reason I've done well on social is I really associate with stand-up comics. I associate with WWF wrestlers who did promo videos trying to get people to buy a pay-per-view at WrestleMania. And I think some of the most profound storytellers of all time have been hip-hop artists. They paint such a picture. I don't have the musical, natural kind of talent that Pharrell has. Like, I don't really even understand. Like, of course, my butt moves a little bit with the beat and things of that nature and production. But when I think about music, I want to know the story. It's often why I love the first album, because I came from the dirt. I love dirt stories, right? I just like them. I like it. I like when people talk to me about, you know, sardines for dinner or, you know, just, you know, like not having heat or slinging some on the corner, whether it was legal or not. I associate so much to it. So the Come Up album, aka the first one, is always the one I gravitate towards. And so I think of it as like the first, it's like comic book #1, right? I'm like, here's this new person and they paint a picture. But even if they don't do that, even if it's not about that, anyone who can paint me a picture, Polo G, right? There's something about him right now for me that I'm like, the way he goes, the way he does, I can see the picture. And so, yeah, I like music a lot. I think obviously it's one of the most profound communication forms in our society. But for me, it's, I appreciate that you're aware of that. It's a little more subtle in my content. You have to be a little bit deeper in my world to see that I'm about that. But I like it a lot. And I'm at a place in my career where I can help a lot of different people, and artists that are emerging basically have nothing but energy coming at them, trying to get a piece of their pie. And I love being this energy that's just there to try to give them some karma, help them. And it creates really meaningful relationships when you are giving without any expectation of anything in return.
True. It's actually, for me, it was the first contact that I had with you because I doubt you'll remember this, but in like 2015, someone posted from your company that they were looking for music for videos and stuff. And a bunch of kids kept tagging me get broke mogul to help you, get
Holy,
broke mogul to
that's
help
cool.
you. And
That's
and I
amazing.
was like, well, who is this guy? Like,
Yeah,
what is
why
this?
are all
And then I
these-
saw, and I wrote, I actually went back and looked at the comment. I wanted to see what the exchange was, and I wrote back, I'm expensive or something, and then you jumped in the conversation and said, this guy's going to be able to afford it. That's what he said. You said something like that.
Wow.
I love
Wow,
it.
you don't miss, bro.
No, he don't.
You be
That's crazy.
Scott is like that. Scott's he'll be on shit like super early. And then he has the receipts 10 years later, 15 years later, whatever. And it's like specific like that. I always admire that about you. I would say about you, Gary, like I had no idea. And then when I found out, it was like an avalanche of energy around your name whenever your name came up. It's like, oh no, this guy is very inspiring or very intuitive or, you know, very much so in the struggle with like the emerging artist or the emerging inventor or the emerging, you know, conceptualist. And it's like, it's interesting, that should be your last name, which is Very, and it's amazing to see.
Thank you, my man. I'm incredibly grateful. I think a lot of what you're talking about right now is the foundation of gratitude.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful. It's such a high energy of mine that it allows me to put myself out there, you know, and I'm not worried about small things. So all the small things of putting yourself out there that come along with it, that's secondary. Gratitude is a driver. More importantly, I'm so grateful I have deep conviction to put people on. Deep. And so much like Scott, like you're saying, like he's in the dirt. He's got his ear to the ground. And like for me, I will always be there. I don't like the ivory tower. I don't like all the fancy things that my career has given me. I like knowing it's there if I want it, but I don't naturally like it. And so I'd rather go ahead, brother.
No, I was just going to say, it's essentially the business that I'm in is discovering new music and finding it. I learn, like I always say, I learn more from the kids that that only have like 100 followers than anyone who has 100,000 followers and is posting stuff. Like it's more natural.
And it's not even close, by the way.
Yeah.
Like as somebody else who does that, I understand you for real, and it's not even close.
That's a good segue into talking about, obviously, I'm not like an expert in the NFT space, but I think the people who listen to this show are musicians who are very curious about how NFTs would help musicians and the future of the music business. And I feel like you're somebody who could probably help them. Like, how should new artists, how should established artists get into NFTs to help them? And at the same time, I'd love for you to touch on, maybe towards the end of it, is at what point do you think the technology will eliminate the middlemen and the labels will be in trouble, or will that ever happen?
Understood. So the labels will have to evolve because now we have all the pieces of the pie, right? What started with Napster and ShareBear and all that stuff that we saw early internet back in the day that really changed the music world. Well, now with TikTok, where you can become quote unquote famous, right? TikTok now is, this will make sense to you all. TikTok now is basically TRL, but anybody can get on TRL. It's not just for, Britney Spears and Diddy, and whoever the producers of that show decided to put on, Mandy Moore, whoever the labels were putting on, 98 Degrees. Like now, in a week, somebody can go from completely unknown to really mattering, right? And so now you have a fame awareness engine at scale. Next, you have disc jockey, right? You have all these platforms. You have SoundCloud, you have Spotify, you have distribution. So you have awareness, fame building, MTV, Distribution used to be the Virgin store. You couldn't just put your CDs in there. But now you have something that has been holding the record industry up for a while, the upfront bag. This is the part that most people don't understand about the music industry. That upfront bag, AKA signing, really matters. Because you got a lot of people who don't have money, and somebody's coming along to you and saying, I'm going to give you $1 million. You're going to sign this paper, you're going to owe me an album or 2 or 3 or 5 or 7. This is how it's going to work. And I don't have to tell you guys how it all works. The fact that an artist that gets heat on TikTok can now launch an NFT project to his or her fans that can long term, this has not been figured out yet, but we're very close. Long term, can use that to fund their first album, and the royalties are split between them and their fans that bought the NFTs that represent the back end instead of them and the album, is a profound historic shift forever. Imagine discovering Nirvana, and after one of their early shows in the Pacific Northwest, they said, next week we're doing an NFT project to fund our first album, and it represents 0.5% of every NFT represents 0.05 or 0.25 or whatever the math was, right? Of our royalties in perpetuity. Imagine how many millionaires there would be of early Nirvana fans because they're getting $40,000 a week in checks because they got a small sliver of Teen Spirit royalties. That is the future. It's bonkers.
It's crazy.
You know, you just gave me a great business idea, which is, you know how sports gambling has those guys who say, call this number and we'll give you our picks for the week? I feel like I'm a great prognosticator of what artists will make it and which ones will not. I should start selling my picks of which ones artists' albums you should buy into.
It's going to be better than that for you, my man. I'm going to give you a better business model. I know enough about your career. You got way more people that know a lot more than I do about your career, who have bags, who really know you. I'm watching from afar, who are going to put up the money to be your partner, and you're going to buy the NFTs yourself. Let me ask you a question. Who do you think you were most early on, most right about? The apex of earliness and biggest. I know you got tons, but I'm not, I know. I'm talking this, like, the earliest and the biggest, because to your point, bro, he's got a ton, just like Mike Boyd does for me, and that's why we do well. But I'm curious what he thinks is his biggest, earliest, and biggest.
Probably the one that sold the most was I was the first person to ever put Rihanna's song in a commercial spot. The Weeknd, Kid Cudi.
Yeah, you were super early on
Kings of Leon.
All of those people, the thought, could you imagine owning 4% of the back end of Rihanna's first album?
That's crazy.
So
Crazy.
So the world's about to change. This is where people struggle. When the internet came along, everyone's like, oh, the information superhighway. You don't have to go to the library. You can look some up. It was way bigger than that. 25 years later, it changed the world. Completely changed the world. I mean, we're talking about communication has changed forever. It is, dating. There are 1 billion people that are going to get married over the next decade that all met online. This wasn't just about, instead of going to the library, you can look up some, this was changing the world. The same is happening right now with blockchain. Everyone right now think of it as like art and collectibles, and I love that. You can see what's behind me here. I love that. But that's a tiny sliver of what the blockchain's actually going to do.
Yep.
There's a part of me, because I work in the music licensing business, and I don't know this, but I'm curious. I would be curious to know the answer if labels and publishers would benefit so much from being on the blockchain with every copyright, but I wonder if they even want that.
Yeah, I mean, when you have the money, you're always scared to change it up because you're scared it's going to f up your money.
I just wonder if they're paying everyone everything that they're supposed to get.
I mean, I think on that front, to your point, my intuition is they really, at the end of the day, aren't they're not massively incentivized to do the wrong thing. It just might be hard to do it. That's why the blockchain is going to be profound. Imagine what the blockchain is at scale in the music industry. This is actually crazy. With the same ease that two people could meet in a studio and set up an Instagram account and post a photo and put it out, you're probably within a decade of a producer, a writer, and an artist chopping it up 2 a.m. in Southside Atlanta, agreeing they want to put this out, putting the contract on the blockchain. You guys know how up all the royalty shit is, lawyers and schmoyers, and just in a room, I'll take 50%, cool, I'll take 18%, right on it. Be able to produce it, make it, put it on distribution, and have the smart contract set and start having monies distributed properly with no feelings, no legal, no concern that you're getting taken advantage of. 10 years.
10 years.
That's insane. That's and you guys know this better than I do because I flirt with it. This is your lives. That's gonna make more great music. Because sometimes people don't do because they're like, yo, I got to talk to my guy, and I'm not sure if I can do that. I got to call my label, my lawyer. When every kid knows the rules of the blockchain and be like, bet, put me in for 29%. I'm good for 30. And it's boom, you're going to have more magic.
Yeah.
So I got a question for you. So that's going to impact radio. Like I personally think very shortly, radio will turn into vinyl. It'll be something that is about, you'll go to it because you want the curation, right? Because right now, everything is like, you can see kids are like, no, I want to go, listen to whatever I want to listen to on demand. And I don't want anything curated for me as much as I just want things that are related, in sound or related in whatever ways that it's, if you're listening to this, you might like that, right? Which is very different than how radio is programmed. Radio is programmed based on what they think. It's really
correct.
It's really like a taster's
That's
choice.
Right. That's right.
That's like really curated, right? That will become more and more obvious in the next couple of years. I don't think it has 10 years where it's going to still be the same thing. I think in the next 5 years, it's going to be very different. And people will go there because they want that curation. It's like a playlist. It's exactly
100%.
what it is, right?
That's exactly what it is.
So how the economics of radio right now, radio still pretty much, is sort of compensates you as if
they're promoting for you.
Yeah. Whereas
right. You should be happy that they're doing that.
But let's say a song that has been minted already and has become an NFT, and a portion of it is an NFT. So every time that song gets played, all of the people who have an NFT on that song, they get paid. They get paid, right?
I mean, it depends on to your point, with Spotify, yes, right? Because they're paying per play. Radio, iHeart, isn't in the business of giving anybody a penny on the play or a half a penny on the play. They're in a classic radio model. And I don't know if this is iHeart's business, but I'm just using them. But radio, is in the business of, oh, you should be happy I'm even playing it. This is marketing and promotion. There's no financial relationship. To your point, I actually think the playlist curation is an emerging thing and continues to be because people want a world of and, not or. They're putting in so much work of doing the work to put my that I want to watch. That's work. But there's also an incredible part of a lot of us that want passive and they just want it done for them. I do believe that there's an incredible way to disrupt by having a platform that is very pro
NFT,
artists. And so now it's all about distribution, right? And that's what Spotify or Napster or MTV or Dick Clark or Casey Kasem or Ryan Seacrest or Z100 or iHeart all did through the years. So that platform that we're imagining, you and I right now, will have to actually get distribution. And even if you have the biggest artists sometimes behind it, Tidal didn't have enough distribution to completely win the game, and they had the beasts of the beast behind it. So, you still have to be consumer centric and have people want to consume it, but the infrastructure is there to build a radio platform that is compensating. And to your point, if it's getting the masters and the audience is getting a benefit from that, from the pennies, it starts getting into an interesting human psychology game. I mean, think about this. If fans change, this will really make sense to you guys. Somebody discovers someone on the come up. They're seeing them at the little club, 40 people, 100 people, but then they sell out, right? They got big. And a lot of those early fans actually get mad because they don't have their artists no more, right? Those fans are not going to be mad when they own 0.3% of the royalties. They're going to be like, go, 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 sell out. Like, I don't even want to see you at the club anymore. They're like, you go play Madison Square Garden. Like, you know, so a lot of new human behaviors are coming.
I got a request, Gary. Would you finish, B?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm finished.
So, maybe a year ago, right? I heard about NFTs early. I would say early last year, maybe a little bit earlier when they first came out. Now, I have an album that I recorded years ago when I was signed with, you know, Star Trek, and you know, we did a record. So it's I guess you would say anticipated. So this is what I did last year. I really didn't know what talking about, but for some reason people was talking about NFTs and art, NFTs and art. And I just was having a conversation with one of my friends, and I was like, man, I'm putting my album out as an NFT. And I was like, oh, that's a good ass idea. That's good, that's good. But I don't know what talking about. And look back, I don't think he knew what I was talking about. I think he just
Makes sense.
So then I went to another
you.
person.
Yep.
Yeah, gassing me. Couple of more people, other people in the music business, some of my peers, some of my friends. Yo, I'm thinking about putting my album out as NFT. Yo, that's crazy. Call me tomorrow, let's talk about it. That's nice, don't tell nobody. I felt he was the same. I'm like, this talking about, he like me. So I got 4 or 5 of those instances, right? So it got to the point where I started seeing all these other artists doing NFTs and projects and art. And I did a little bit more research, and I'm I kind of know more now, but I would love for you to give me like I guess, lamest terms. Like if I want to explain this to somebody who have no idea what an NFT is, what's like one of the best ways?
The
I can
elevator
do that?
pitch.
Yep. The elevator
What you call
pitch
it, bro?
comes in.
The elevator pitch.
Elevator pitch.
The elevator pitch for NFTs comes in a couple forms. There's a couple go-tos that I go to. Number 1, do you have a child in your life, niece, nephew, daughter, son,
Yes.
granddaughter, that buys things on their video game? Roblox, Minecraft, Fortnite.
Yes. Skins.
Anybody who's got a kid that bought a Fortnite skin for $40 already understands 85% of why NFTs are going to work. These are kids that bought in a digital world to power up or flex in a digital world. The end.
Yeah.
The end. So I'll tell you why everyone's up with NFTs. They're bringing their internet brain to the blockchain. The reason everyone makes the joke like, oh, you got a JPEG, I could just control save it, is because that's the internet. The blockchain, you can't do that. I can tell you who owns that picture. It's on the blockchain. The blockchain allowed people to actually own something digitally. The internet didn't. As a matter of fact, it was the opposite. People were stealing left and right from people.
Yeah.
We just got used to it. Remember copyright back in 95, 6, 7, 8? Everyone was trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
When YouTube first hit, they would have like videos from like SNL and The Simpsons, and they would take that down. Then the world changed. They're like, it's marketing and this and that, because you couldn't track it. The blockchain, you can track everything. So first thing I always tell people is you can own something digitally. You've got to understand that. And if you don't, well, then there's no conversation.
Got you.
Right?
Okay.
Number 2, the next thing I go to when people make jokes like, Gary, this is stupid. I'm like, was it stupid when you asked me to get you a blue check mark on Instagram? They're like, immediately they get crazy. They're like, what? I'm like, remember 3 years ago when you begged me to get you a blue check mark on Instagram? I'm like, that's a digital asset. What do you want that for?
Wow, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so that immediately gets people caught off guard. And then I go into fashion. Look at us right now. Every one of us is wearing a hoodie, right?
That's
to
crazy. Yeah.
to represent ourselves. Fashion is representation. We communicate through the things we buy. The number one thing that humans do is communicate through, humans need to communicate. We communicate through written word, through actual verbal words, through writing. But the number one way humans communicate to each other is by what they buy. That's why fashion is one of the most important businesses in the world. The reason I knew social media was going to work when a lot of people didn't believe in it back in 15 years ago was I knew that pictures would scale your communication. That if you wore a fresh hoodie, a Kith hoodie, some fresh, new off-whites, that only the 12 to 74 people that saw you that night would see it. But with a photo, oh, that's 3, 4, 7, 23, 50,000 and became millions later, right? With NFTs, your public NFT wallet in 5 to 7 years is going to be a bigger communication tool than your social media account. People are going to communicate through the NFTs that they have and what they own. And then finally, last point, every single ticket to every single event in the world in a decade is going to be an NFT. Because when you're Coachella, when you're Rolling Loud, when you're Madison Square Garden, when you're the NBA Finals, doing it as a QR code does nothing for you except let people in. Doing it as an NFT, and Steph Curry drops 70 points in a legendary night that night, people are selling that NFT that night, and you as the NBA is taking a royalty for every transaction. It's good for the people in the audience and it's good for the NBA. So it's an inevitable outcome, the same way that eBay was an inevitable outcome, or Uber or Amazon. If it's good for both parties, it's a wrap.
If you have these NFTs, do you think that the association of art with NFT is just the entry point, almost like marketing to bring people in to understand the relationship or what the utility is of NFTs? Like, do you really think it's not an ephemeral thing that will have value to people later on? Because without knowing too much about it, it just feels like, you take Beeple, for instance, selling for $60 million or whatever it was, $69 million. And I believe it was bought by somebody who is in the crypto space. And it seems like those big sales are, people who have crypto assets who are trying to bring marketing utility.
I think it's very smart what you're saying, my friend. Let me give you a comp that I think is going to really, really change your perspective or help you debate your perspective. It's no different than the internet stocks of the late 90s. You had companies in 1998 worth 8, 12, 40 billion dollars, right? That were on the public market in Wall Street, and they went to zero. And by the way, $20 billion in 1999 is like $1 trillion now.
Yeah.
So to your point, this is why I keep making this content. 98 to 99% of the NFT art and collections that are out right now are going to zero. But the macro NFT technology and reality is the biggest thing that's happened since the internet. So to your point, there's a lot, when there's real money, you got all sorts of bad behavior. It's a gold rush, you got scammers, you got people that got their own interest, to your point, buying just because, but the same way that you could read unlimited articles in 98, 99, 2000, where people are like, the internet's a fad, the internet's a fad, the internet's a fad, they would say it because of like the Beeple sale. The problem was there was bad and early and too early behavior, but the technology was masterful. And I think that's what's happening now. There's plenty of dog. And if you told me most things are going to zero, but I can tell you right now, VeeFriends, I'm building Disney and I'm not going to be stopped. Period. End of story. And everybody who buys VeeFriends is going to win because I'm in control with the blockchain to make it good for them. I just don't think most people are talented enough or have the right intent to do what I'm doing right now, but over time they will. And then it will also mature and become a staple of our society.
Let me ask you this. With celebrities, musicians especially, and influencers, do you think it's disingenuous for them to go out and tell people they publicly bought NFT when they were obviously gifted it?
I think it's atrocious. I think most people don't give a but I think I'd rather win with the 1% and 2% of best and nicest than win with the 98% who aren't best and nice. And I think a lot of people right now are compromising their name to the top 2% of the people in the world. And when I say top 2%, I don't say financially. I'm talking the cross section of creative, powerful, nice, and financially. I'm blown away watching some people that I like, acquaintances, people I don't know but have heard good things about, do dumb for $100,000. As if that doesn't, I'm blown away by the audacity of people with fame to not understand there's ramifications for not doing the right thing. Like, why would you compromise your name for a small bag?
A small one. I don't get
Yeah.
it. When you were saying you're going to be Disney, I was like, Disney World? I was like, man, you know, it's like Galt Visney or Vault Gisney. Like, they need to know you're on your way. I see the T-shirts. I see like the joke meme tees already. Just for fun. Just because what you're about to really do is very comprehensive. You've been on this since I think the last time we spoke. You started talking about building out your world.
And bro, it's scarier than you think. I've been on this since, I was fascinated with Vince McMahon and Walt Disney when I was 10 years old. I was like, these people sit at the top of characters. One did it one way, cartoons, right? The other one was doing it with real human beings. All that Hulk Hogan is Mickey Mouse.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right? And so Gary V is that. I didn't have a place for me to do anything with, so I was like, I'll make myself famous. Like, I always needed a vehicle to build brand, but now with NFTs, I was finally ready, and I have real passion to leave the earth a better place than I came into. So for example, two of my biggest characters, the most valuable NFTs, they're worth $1 million a piece now, for the one of ones, Empathy Elephant and Patient Panda. Like, I want to make those Buzz Lightyear and Woody for my selfish wants and needs, but way more for my selfless, because I promise you, if I get people to fall in love with empathy and, patience, they could be happier. And now my favorite one, and the world evolves and you see new where things are. My new favorite character in my world is Accountable Ant. Ain't nobody running out here trying to be accountable for. And I know that accountability leads to I'm happy because I think everything that sucks for me is my fault. I'm obsessed with accountability. Like, too much. I think I fabricate it. Even when I know it's not me, I'm like, yo, that's me.
Yep.
Accountability.
That's awesome.
And
I'm big on empathy as well. I had empathy on a pair of Adidas.
Yeah, I had a wine brand. I had a wine brand that I started 5 years ago that I sold, literally.
Crazy.
Empathy. Yeah, I like that. I know that that's my superpower. Like, I'm compassion, sympathy, empathy. They're all kissing cousins. Like,
Yeah.
I don't even know how to think about in my life without thinking about the other person. It's why I'm a good salesman. It's why I can see through other people's eyes. I don't make opinions based on myself. I make opinions based on the masses. It doesn't matter what I think about NFTs. It doesn't matter what I thought about the iPhone versus the BlackBerry. It doesn't matter what I think about the TikTok versus Instagram. It doesn't matter. Meaning, not when I'm trying to navigate business decisions. It matters what the 8 billion people are going to do.
Yep. Agreed. Except I will say, I'm not the biggest fan of sympathy. I love empathy. I feel like sympathy and pity has never done anything for anyone, whereas empathy, at least, you're feeling for the person and you are visualizing what that must be like and you're relating and you're allowing that to resonate. Whereas sympathy for me, it's where you go, man, Tisk, I'm really sorry that, I don't want you to be sorry for me. I want you to imagine what it feels like, and I want you to do something based on what that feeling feels like. Whereas sympathy doesn't charge that.
Yeah, I love that. I'll tell you where mine pivoted, because I was very long on what you just said for a long time. where sympathy started to really emerge for me in the last 5 years is creating the capacity for someone to grieve for a period of time.
Sure.
You know, I've been spending a lot of time on grieving. I think people are embarrassed to grieve. I think we need to have a new relationship with grieving. Everyone's so quick to be like, yo, you know, your mom would have wanted you to keep going, or, you know, everyone's so quick to transition someone to the next phase. I hear you so loud and clear, and I'm picking up what you're putting down, though I have added sympathy. I think there are moments in time where deploying it in very challenging times to give that person a moment of breathing. I think I've spun that word from a word that I have historically struggled with to a little bit of a different angle in the context, because that's how I'm using it, right? Of grieving.
I understand that. I think for me, that might be something that I might need to work on. It might be a little bit too, I might be involving myself in it a little bit too much, my own experiences, because as Black people, what often happens to us is like, you know, sympathy is actually like a 3-card Monte. It's like, oh, we sympathize for you. And then in that sympathy is a mechanism that's designed to bait us, like you're trying to help us, but really you're selling this. It's like you're marketing this campaign, you know, in something that's probably going to really tax us down the road.
You know, I don't want to go on tilt here. I'm so about what you're saying, you can't even imagine. For me, where you're going right now is my number is like, I can already feel my chemicals getting mad and like I'm ready to go. And I'll tell you why. It goes so, for my man, brother, it goes so far. So what I do for a living is human anthropology. And I all I do is watch. It goes so far. People don't act on their words at all. At all. We have become a society of complete non-action and believing that a couple of words here and there is action. To your point, even, you know, empathy, all of this requires action on all fronts. Let me give you one that will you, if with me so much, maybe it won't, for me it's crazy. I get obsessed when people boycott brands. I tag them internally and then watch them support that brand a year later.
Yes.
Yeah.
Chick-fil-A?
Yes.
Chick-fil-A is the craziest one.
Yeah.
Chick-fil-A gets, you know, Chick-fil-A's good for getting, you know, people really upset once every year or year and a half, right?
Yeah.
It just happens. You know, Sunday's very religious, gay rights. It happens. It's that moment, and people are, you Chick-fil-A, never. Literally 7 months later, photo eating that.
Yeah.
We are at hypocrisy at scale.
Yes.
And so, you know, I'm with you, and it goes gender, race, social issues. I mean, it's really unfortunate. I mean, people want to posture some of that went down this week on people's judgment on what happened at the Oscars when they don't have a foot to step on because they did some 6 years earlier or 10 years earlier. Like, hypocrisy has become a disease.
You can't create a wave unless you're willing to trade in your truth in order to ride the wave. You know what I'm saying? You can't. That's what happens on social media. Like, if in order for you to ride a wave, you gotta dismiss and forgive the shit you've done and do it in a way that, like, do it so fast that you don't realize you're doing it because you're trying to ride that wave. You know what I mean? And only until somebody come up and point your shit out, then you go, oh, okay, cool. But until then, no one's worried about it. And I think, you know, as you talk about like brands or corporations or companies that stand on what they stand on and get wrapped up in things every year or every other year or so, it's like the trickiest part is they want the money of all the people, but they want to market to everybody, but then they want to stand for a sliver of humanity. And I think that's where it gets tricky. And then as long as enough, to your point, when enough time goes past, people go, well, ain't nobody talking about that, and I really want that special sauce. You know what I mean? And nobody's gonna call them out. But you seeing it. You seeing what you seeing. But it kind of relates to what I was saying about like sympathy and empathy, because sympathy is one of those things that's like, oh, okay, man, we feel so sorry. We know that, you know, the systemic issues in this country, one of the three main ones is, you know, disproportionate access to healthcare and medicine, disproportionate access to education, and disproportionate access to representation, even legislation. Right? So let's take healthcare, for example. Like oh man, we really feel sorry. We realize that like you guys have been redlined. We realize that you guys are refused often. We realize that it's pretty tough for you to get healthcare. So we're gonna create, you know, some laws that help you and that equify everything. And then we're gonna create some businesses because we feel sorry for you. That feeling sorry for you gets so loud in the marketing that they're able to hide all of the fine print slavery that's in there. So you never ever really are able to pay your bills or ever really able to, you know, to have a debt paid. So you're like enslaved to it. Whereas empathy is, oh, if I put myself in your shoes, I realize that you have disproportionate access to healthcare and medicine, and we're gonna create a business. We're not only gonna create a business that helps you get better access to healthcare, but we're also gonna create some programs to teach you so that you can own your own companies for healthcare and actually become doctors. And we're gonna create tuition and grants programs and scholarship programs so that you can go become a doctor yourself and actually even go even further for more grants to try to figure out how to create medicines and patent them and own them yourself. That's what empathy does for you. Empathy doesn't just go, I feel sorry for you, so here's what I'm gonna do for you. Here's the one little avenue I have for you. Yep. Empathy goes, you know what? I see your people are sick. I see your people are starving for education. And I see you people are starving for C-suite positions in that business. And I think that you guys are starving to like start your own businesses. And by the way, we're gonna create a couple of businesses ourselves. And so that's kind of like what sympathy does and what empathy does and what sympathy does.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. There's a big ass reason why this isn't sympathy wines. I'm with you. I'm with you. What I've done is I've always been on that train. What I've done is in context, there's always a moment for and, right? To your point, we're talking about action, and I'm with you. I believe empathy is a tremendous fuel for action where sympathy isn't. Sympathy I use as an action to allow someone to get grieve. A beat. Yeah. I'm very honest. Grieving is something I've been thinking a lot about. I've been very fortunate that I haven't had many grieving moments in my life. I just want people to be able to grieve. I really do. They need it because go ahead, bro.
No, I was gonna say, have you heard the book? Heard of the book? It's an old book called Denial of Death by Ernest Becker.
No, sir.
You should get it. There's an audiobook. I know you don't read, but there's an audiobook of it. You should check it out. Even just read what it's about.
Holy wait. So are you like an audiobook like dude?
I'm not even an audiobook dude. Like I consume information by watching people. You know what's crazy? If I wasn't,
you're more visual. So you're more visual than auditory?
I'm auditory too though, but the way I like it. So documentaries I'll consume for the rest of my life.
That's
I would argue documentaries are the foundation of my education. And like, honestly, here's some good one. I was about to start a production company to make docs literally in the month of January, and then NFTs popped off and it completely threw me off. And talk about some of the systemic racist issues in our society. Do you know the first documentary I wanted to make was about the life of Connie Hawkins? So I don't know if you guys know who Connie Hawkins. Yeah, Connie Hawkins was one of the great basketball players of the 70s. Completely got on some bull. And I just want people to see the story because it's a crazy ass story. Like just what he went through, Harlem Globetrotters, like what kind of player was, like even late in his career when he got to, like just a crazy, like a story that needs to be told. So docs I learn from. But what I really do, if I wasn't a hustling entrepreneur kid and was a little bit more into science, based on everything else that I am, I'd probably be living in like Peru watching red-headed ants for 42 years because I just love to observe.
Right.
Like why I'm good and see is I don't go on social to flex. I definitely don't go on social to fight. I go on social to consume information and make observations. And back to what my man was saying here with 100 followers, I'm in the dirt. Show me a 16-year-old that's different, who's got 417 followers on the gram. She or he's gonna show me something completely different that's coming up. And I think that is the most intoxicating feeling, seeing the world before it plays out.
That's like me. Like I'll be on Twitch watching the kids that have like 15 people following them just to check out what they're talking about.
I do the same. The dirt, the dirt is where all the magic is.
Do you think with Web3 at mass adoption, the users will care about the decentralization as much as the builders?
Probably not, because what you're seeing in decentralization is that people, when they get their stolen, have nobody to help them. Everyone's like, yo, government, business, Mark Zuckerberg. And they're like, I'm down with decentralization. I own my, nobody's got info. Somebody steals their Bored Ape. They're like, yo, where the is the government? Yo, OpenSea. Like, you know, like, so everybody, you know how it is. Everybody loves it, things in thesis. Bro, I was born in the USSR. If you read Marxism without knowing that it's Marxism, beautiful. Some is just beautiful in theory, and then in execution and reality and practicality, it's a little different. Decentralization, nobody owns the servers. Everybody was all about that, right? Especially with the privacy and they're spying and they're fucking, you know, we even got so crazy that people are like, yo, Facebook made me racist. No, it didn't. Facebook exposed your racism. You were racist. We just exposed it. Like I love how much we decided to blame there's nobody walking around right now that's nice to social media. They're f***ing up the kids. Like people just want to, there's no accountability. So everybody got hot on decentralization off of the back of everyone getting mad at social media until they clicked the wrong button and somebody stole 125K from them, and then they're crying all over Twitter for somebody to help them.
Wow.
Facts.
So
did you see the article that came out this morning about Facebook hiring the teams to take down TikTok to make them say that it's bad for children?
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, look, you know this. I don't put anything past big business. Name a business. I'll tell you right now what, and by the way, like people, you should see, you know, back to what I do for a living. Obviously there was a big cultural event, an unfortunate one because I adore both of the people involved on Sunday night, right? You should see what people were doing all week trying to support which side of the fence they were on these guys. All sorts. Yeah, you guys know. I don't have to tell you. See how you just reacted? If you love one of the two, first of all, a lot of people in the game were really in a, it just hurt because there's a lot of love for both parties, right? And so you're like, oh, but then some people, like just the nature of how their life came out, they're a little closer to one or the other. And people were doing all sorts of I love when people are like, yo, this big business is Facebook's trying to f up TikTok. I'm like, friends are trying to f up friends to make the narrative work the way they want this week. Little humans. You know,
I only brought it up. I brought it up because you said it's bad for children, and they're saying that it was the group that Facebook hired was planting those articles.
Oh, by the way, I don't think it's bad for children. Everybody thinks it's bad for children. I'm sitting at dinner with parents yelling about technology, and then their 7-year-old kid comes over and we're having a nice dinner, and they give them an iPad to stop bothering them.
Yep.
This has literally happened to me multiple times. Like because I'm that guy in a friend group. They're like, as if I created the world. They're like, Gary, I'm like, I didn't invent this shit. They're like, Gary, this is all it's the kids. I'm like, I didn't make this. And then kid comes over, mommy, daddy, they're drinking wine, having fun with me. Mommy, daddy, can you do this? They give them an iPad and send them off. I'm like, you're a hypocrite.
My parents put me in front of the TV. I actually wrote a piece I wrote a piece when I was in my 20s about my television was my babysitter.
100%.
Yeah,
As everybody's always demonizing everything. Like, Gary, you don't get it. This shit's up. I'm like, they told me Elvis was. They told me hip hop was. They told me Madonna laying on the floor was. They told me Miley Cyrus on the MTV Music. Like everything. Like we always demonize. They told me long hair from the Beatles was gonna me up. This is what we always do. We always demonize the new.
Yeah. What's your thoughts on cannabis and NFTs?
You want to talk about something that I've been very fascinated about? So,
Yep.
cannabis. When I think about cannabis and psychedelics, mushrooms, I'm always incredibly fascinated by knowing that there are millions of people around the world today who don't feel well, that that problem can be solved by something that's been banned. And I always be up. I love business.
Yeah.
I'm not one of these like
yeah.
business for everything, but this one category, when I think about cannabis and mushrooms, I think, man, there's a lot of people on some bullshit medicine that costs a fortune that isn't doing for them. And, you know, microdosing or smoking or edibles can really help them, especially, you know, and so, especially if you go back to the history books and see what was helping people with back in the day when there wasn't all this modern technology. So, I'm very bullish on it and think that the world will become more thoughtful about it as we become more Eastern and Western around the world and we're going towards the middle on medicine. B, I think about NFTs, like you just, when you say, hey, Gary, what do you think about NFTs and cannabis? That's like asking me in 1996, hey, Gary, what do you think about the internet and cannabis? I'm like, yes.
Okay. All right.
You know, like I think about NFTs. I think about NFTs the way I think about social media. There won't be a business on earth, in a decade that NFT isn't part of their Swiss Army knife. Because because we're gonna switch from collectible with a hint of utility to utility with a hint of collectability.
Yeah.
And once that happens, everybody's gonna have a need or a use case for it. Once people get off the mental hump that, oh, you could own something digital, then they'll say, okay, it's gonna be like Jackson Pollock and Andy Warhol, maybe it's people. Other things are gonna be utilitarian tickets. You're never gonna need all these bracelets at Coachella and Rolling. It's stupid. Like an NFT, boom, 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 reader. Like there's so many things it's gonna work for. Your airline ticket, like all of this is gonna be validated and an asset. I keep reminding everybody, like matchboxes, magnets, right? Like if you go on eBay right now, look at how many mundane things that are 50 years old that sell on eBay for $100, an old matchbox from the Copacabana, right? So what, you don't think if NFTs were around years ago, you don't think somebody would have wanted to buy a Little Richard's first concert NFT? Like, who would want that? So like, there's so much coming. So the answer is yes.
I also asked cause I'm doing a cannabis summit here in Virginia, and I kind of adopted one of your ideas for like this is the first year of it, and we doing NFTs. Like I said, I've been doing a little research and dabbling with it, and you had a model that I think would work for what we doing. Like, so you buy NFT, whatever that's gonna be, and one of the utilities is you get it for the next 4 years or the next 3 years.
Yes, sir.
You got access to the
Yes, sir.
to the summit, because otherwise it's free. But if you buy the NFTs, you got access for the next 2 years. So
I love that.
and it's getting a crazy response too. So
I'm
kudos
happy
to
for
you
you.
and thank you. Yeah, like
And kudos to you for action. No different than our empathy conversation earlier. Everybody
Yes, sir.
sees what I'm doing. Who the gonna execute on it?
Oh yeah, I'm
And so
executing,
you
brother.
executed. Kudos to you.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, I guess we're getting closer to wrapping up, so I want to ask you one last thing. I saw this morning actually that you bought a pickleball team.
I did.
Do you play?
Pickleball.
I've hacked a little bit. I want to get really deep into it. I love tennis and ping pong. I'm a big fan of racket sports, so I'm really excited about it. Listen, pickleball in my brain is no
Huge.
different than huge. And most people don't know, right? So it's the same game for me. NFTs, social media. When I invested in Facebook and Twitter in 2006, nobody even knew what I was talking about, right? Gunna, when he had a couple thousand followers on Instagram. It's all Pickleball. It's all the same game. Seeing the fucking world before anybody else sees it. You're aware that pickleball's happening, right? But
I want to know how we buy a team.
send me an email. It's Gary at VaynerMedia. I'll put you in touch. We're wrapping up the ownership group. But I think pickleball, let me tell you why I think pickleball will become a huge sport in America. Because the way they created the game was to almost mitigate most skills, right? The ball and the paddle can only do so much. So it's a sport where a dentist can come off the street, enter a tournament, and beat a top 5,000 player. And so what's going to happen is, as it builds up steam, there's going to be some story of like some, and by the way, male, female too. It's a very fascinating sport where a man's physical strengths, don't have the same effects that they do in other sports. So all of a sudden, imagine this story that will get everybody in America talking. A 68-year-old grandma just randomly enters a tournament and beats the 25-year-old #1 male guy in the finals. That's going to be on the evening news. Like, it's built for virality. And
you know what the comp is poker tournament. Anybody who has the $10,000 to buy in can go play the pros and beat the pros.
And to your point, it's not going to be like you've never played poker and you just go and win that tournament. You got to play a little online, but it's not like you're one of the best in the world. Same here. It's not like that 68-year-old. Yeah, that 68-year-old grandma's got to be playing, in her backyard with her homies for a couple of months. But that and poker's poker. This is actually physical. I'm telling you, there's going to be a viral moment in the next 5 years that's going to put everybody on. Plus, a lot of people don't want to play golf, but when they get older, they still want to do. Right? I've torn both my meniscuses in the last 5-7 years. Like, basketball is starting to, 50's not far for me anymore. Like, basketball is like, I got to be a little careful. Pickleball is a sport that 50, 60, 70, 80-year-olds can play with. And then again, right, a grandma playing their 14-year-old granddaughter, really hard in most sports. Pickleball was designed in a way, it's actually a profoundly fascinating thing for me to observe the last 3 years before I made this decision to go in. The amount of pickleball courts that are popping up instead of tennis courts in people's backyards is blowing me away. I think it's going to really pop off. Kind of like MMA and esports in the last 25 years kind of came out of nowhere and became sports. I think pickleball is on its way.
It's not on its way. It's definitely, it's affirmative.
Spoken like a man that lives in the dirt.
Well, thank you very much for this.
Thank you.
This was awesome.
Thanks for having me. Pharrell, I also want to thank you, bro. I know we haven't really publicly said it yet, but I don't know when you guys are publishing this, but I'm so excited you're coming to VeeCon. I think it's going to be it's a huge addition to our conference. I can't wait to have your incredible intellect hit that audience, and people are going to lose their minds when we announce.
My brother.
Well, maybe you should speak a little bit about that since we didn't really touch on it.
Yeah, so VeeCon is May 19th to the 22nd. Back to the point, like when VeeFriends launched last May, it gave you a ticket to 3 years of my Rolling Loud meets Davos meets South by Southwest. It's at US Bank Stadium in a football stadium. I saw the bill for the stage and threw up all over myself. Like, this is a real thing, right? From Beeple to the founders of Cool Cats and Guy Oseary from Bored Ape and World of Women, Kevin Rose, all the luminaries of the NFT world. And then obviously other profound thought leaders that are playing in the space, like Pharrell, Snoop, Eva Longoria. Like, it's going to be a crazy 4-day event, Thursday through Sunday, 19th to 22nd in Minnesota. I'm really proud of it. And
I'm coming, man.
I know, my man.
I'm coming. Dude.
I'm glad, bro.
Yeah, I want to see
I'm really glad. So, yeah, Pharrell, thank you so much for being a part of the lineup.
Of course, man.
dope.
And thank you for, even including me in the conversation. You're coming as well, right?
I guess I am now.
Yeah.
Yeah, we gotta go, Scott.
Honestly, if you can go, man, it's a big deal. Like, it's going to be one of these things where I'm promoting it, but kind of not really. And like, after it happens, everyone's going to be like next year's, is gonna be a problem for me because I have 1,000 friends asking me, and I'm like, listen, I can't compromise. It's not. I don't have the tickets to give you. You're gonna have to go buy one on OpenSea, right? Because that's like how I gotta do that. Next year's gonna be a big problem for me because a lot of people are gonna want to come once they realize what it is.
That's interesting that you brought up OpenSea, and I'm just curious. Do you think they're going to have a competitor?
100%. I think they're the eBay, but I think the way NFTs are going to sell is more like Instagram Shop, kind of like the Chinese social networks. I think that there's going to be both. There's going to be the eBay, and many people will try to compete with OpenSea, but they got a big lead and a big brand lead. And then there's going to be like the way Asian social networks work, where the shopping's done within social. And I think that there's a huge, Coinbase has already announced that they're doing something. Meta, see, it seems like Instagram's doing something. Like, people are going to buy within social. So there's going to be a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, thank you for supporting our friend Tekla out of Amsterdam with her Project Freedom Girl. I got to show you, it's amazing. She's unbelievable what Tekla's doing.
She's real talent.
Yes,
she's real talent.
Whoa! Who knew she had all that in her? That Freedom Girl product, I got to show you. It's amazing.
She's a real talent.
So thank you for helping.
Right? Of course.
Still.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thank you, man. Pleasure, man.
Wish you guys well.